I had this let going feeling, this feeling of, if I never do another thing, this will have been enough. Up to that point, I was always thinking, I could have done more in my life. I could have become something. I'm pretty good at a lot of things. I just worked behind my husband in his business. So there was always a little bit of a feeling of, you didn't really do all that much, And so that was kind of a disconnected state in reality. But when I had that experience with my son, there was really authentic letting go of this is enough.
With me today is Robin Jelinek. Robin, welcome, and thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Rod. Happy to be here.
All right. Well, I do want to get to being a channel for the collective Athena and Truth, but before we get there, can you just tell us a bit about what your life was like growing up and how you came to be in the channeling business?
Yeah, yeah. Well, life has smoothed out quite a bit now since when this first happened to me. I think I was probably around 61 or 62 in that area. I've been on a spiritual journey my entire life from my early 20s. I could probably fill this room with books and things that I studied and read about. Just had a passion for it, really, just really enjoyed it. And that went on probably from my early 20s up into my early 40s. At that time, I had an experience, a Kundalini awakening experience, and that kind of propelled me into a whole nother direction. I really was interested after having that experience, learning all that I could about it. There were a lot of changes that came over me because of that experience. And that's kind of what to this day now that I really teach. It's a big part of my practice. I help people in the raising of that energy, also with people who have had partial risings or some difficulty with a rise that may have occurred earlier in their life that they haven't really been able to integrate. So I used to wonder why I had the experience that I did. And now I kind of understand that in experiencing all avenues of that energy, I really know how to guide people in a direction that they're needing to if they're having any kind of a problem. I had a partial rise initially where my Kundalini got activated before I even knew that there was such a thing as doing work on your energy centers or releasing negativity. I hadn't done a lot of that kind of work. I, of course, was suffering in my experience, but didn't really know how to get rid of that. And so when that energy accelerated, it's a magnifier really of everything that you're holding within you. So that kind of started a whole nother journey of looking at things that were coming up. And in the beginning, I did it in condemnation and judgment, which of course made me suffer more. That's what the dark night of the soul really is. It's starting to see things about yourself that you think are disconnected and therefore denying your connection. But really, after I got on the journey, it took a while, but I figured out that I'm the only one that denies my connection. It has nothing to do with anything I've done or that's being judged or held against me as I might have thought. So back in the day, there was a lot of trying to force myself to like things that I didn't like and judge myself and condemn myself if perhaps people weren't for me. There was something wrong with my perception or the way that I was feeling. And so, what I've really learned along the path is that there's a perfect plan in place, that nothing that you're living is wrong in the way that you're feeling your life. And once I really surrendered to that and just allowed myself to pick and choose from that emotional deck the way that I was feeling, with no condemning, no judging, no regretting, no need to change it, I found myself in a place of connection and really wanting to share that with other people so that they too can realize that there is no preconceived level of perfection. There's just you in the way that you feel about you. That's really determining your connection to the divinity partner that you're in this experience with.
Now, I have a basic understanding of what a Kundalini awakening is, and I've had other guests describe it to me. So, how did that show up for you, and how did you know that's what it was, and what did you experience?
Well, I think I did read a book, and I've shared it before because I think it's share worthy. It was a really a good book called Ancient Teachings for Beginners. Back in the day, there was actually a second book, which was the Advanced Teaching. That one's harder to find. It was written by DeLong. I think it's capital DELONG, I believe it is. And what it was some of the original text or the connective things that were used in the spiritual scriptures. Maybe Jesus and different aspirants had used these techniques before. And I started to dabble in them. I'm not really a person that pushes technique or meditation necessarily. What I'm pushing is whatever is calling you, whatever you get called to. And for some reason, I got called to this. So I started to do some of the practices that were in that book. They really resonated with me, and I started to begin to feel like these energy centers really held some very important connective keys to the human experience. And in doing some breathing into those centers and some focused concentration, I slowly began to realize that I am a conductor of light. I am able to, through my focus and through my intention, bring more and more of that divinity light into myself, stimulating those energy centers to cough up or kick out whatever is held in there that's actually preventing more divine light getting into me. But I'm going to have to go through this process of discovery of what it is that I am holding. And I can either do it consciously and suffer through it, have lots of things coming up that I don't like that I condemn and judge, or I can decide to consciously recognize what I'm seeing as a revelation to what's creating in my experience and be grateful for seeing it, which actually stops that dark night of the soul and starts to move things very quickly out of your experience. It wasn't very long at all. I would say 2.5 to 3 months into this observation process or focused attention on my energy centers. I had the rise. I had that dramatic experience where what was read about was now confirmed. I heard all of the energy centers spinning. I actually felt the puncture of each one of those chakras as it rose up. And there was even a little bit of discomfort, a slight bit of pain. I could tell when it had hit blockages. I knew that it was a partial rising. I could tell that it had not made it all the way to the top. And however, it still came down, which I was surprised by. And I felt like a flush of lava as it came back through, burning each one of those energy centers open, kind of clearing them out on the way down. And then I was kind of left there in a state of shock and awe on what had just occurred. I really felt like I got electrocuted. It felt a lot like electricity. Then I would say the next 2 years were kind of tumultuous. There was a lot of emotional upheaval, a lot of condemning, a lot of judging, a lot of backsliding, seeing things in myself that I didn't like, not realizing that I'd actually invited to myself that with that experience. That's what it does. It tries to bring to your recognition consciously what you're doing in your experience that's separating you. And it's not about the actual act, it's about the way that you think and feel about yourself because of what you're experiencing that's creating the separation. Had I just viewed myself in compassion and love and understanding, the flow would have just continued to come in. I would have been a match to it. But any type of a lower tone judgment or condemnation of what you're doing in your life and the way that you feel causes a not love of self, a lower vibrational tone, and therefore a disconnection to your source. So you do it to yourself, basically. So that went on for about a year and a half, and then this Kundalini energy is a really peculiar thing because when it gets stimulated in you, you can have an insatiable thirst to be driven in practices and to want to accumulate more knowledge and wisdom about it. And then you can go into a dead period where you don't want anything to do with it, and you don't even think about it, and you forget that it even happened. Sometimes for a year or two at a time. So it was surprising to me that this was a 25-year journey, that this actually happened in my early 40s. I became a channel in my early 60s. And it was an ongoing process of observing yourself, acclimating that energy, trying to get used to the idea that you were not just the human that you thought you were. There's a lot of dying off of yourself in the way that you perceive yourself. So there was just a lot of struggle, I would say, involved in it. And then I finally reached the point where I realized my son had a child. He was probably in his late 30s, getting close to 40. And I was so uh, in such a connective state when he handed me that grandchild to see my child love something the way that I had loved him. I had this let going feeling, this feeling of, if I never do another thing, this will have been enough. I've said this before in recordings, but I really felt like that was what connected me. Up to that point, I was always thinking, I could have done more in my life. I could have become something. I'm pretty good at a lot of things. I just worked behind my husband in his business. So there was always a little bit of a feeling of, you didn't really do all that much, And so that was kind of a disconnected state in reality. But when I had that experience with my son, there was really an authentic letting go of this is enough. I don't need to be anything. I don't have anything to prove. What I've done is enough. And it was in that statement really that very quickly this channeling experience started. And quite a career opened up, which I never expected at the age of 61, and one that I find satisfying, one that fits into my life, one that is not intrusive in any way, that I have control over. When I think of being in my 60s and working in a business, and it is a business, I guess, to some degree, I would have thought, no way, I don't want to be controlled by anything at this point. I've done my work, and I'm financially set from the work that we did in our past. And so I didn't really see that this would ever be anything that I would do. However, I've made the statement, my son asked me a couple of times, well, if you have won the lottery, would you keep doing what you do? And I guess the answer to that would be yes. So it's not about money, is it? It's about satisfaction. And I really believe that the universe is a magical, beautiful thing that wants to satisfy you in what it is that you desire. Unfortunately, we as humans, we think that we do something other than creating our own experience by how we feel. The human has one job to do, and that's to send out that signal in the way that it feels. And then when the universe receives that, it's the one with the wonderful network. It's the one with all of you, the past of you, all the past lives, all the lineage has all that data. It's the one that culminates the really satisfying feeling experience. So looking back over all of that, I could never, as Robin, have imagined a scenario for myself such as the one that I'm in. And that's what's really been satisfying and convincing to me, that the universe holds something beyond what we can see as a human. And if we can surrender to that understanding, what we can get is so far more satisfying than what we think we need. And we could let go of that need. The need is actually what's denying the entrance of what the divine has already created for you in full satisfaction. And that's a lesson that I got in all of this and that I really believe in.
Oh, isn't it ironic that you resigned? Well, you weren't resigned, but you'd sort of like, okay, well, I'm done here. I feel like I'm complete, and then and suddenly
Yeah.
something else comes along to
Mhm.
replace that. Yeah, I've had another guest a similar thing. She was retired,
Yeah.
and her husband died, and she'd never in a million years thought, she'd be writing books and doing other things, but and yet
Absolutely.
there she is. So
Wow.
tell us about the. Actually, I have a different question. During that process of the awakening, it was a fairly. I don't know if there was a lot of support for people that would have been going through that. So you had a couple of references. Do you have any other, teachers or guides that helped you through that?
I just did a lot of reading. One thing I learned, this is kind of funny you brought up this thing, because that was another condemning thing that I had against myself was I didn't always complete things. I would start something and I think, I'd do it a little bit and not complete it. So then I started to really kind of judge and condemn. It's not very good thinking you're going to start something and not finish it. So there was a lot of that kind of thing going on, oh, maybe I'll be a life coach, or maybe I'll be a massage therapist. Maybe and then every time I would make a move in that direction, I would very quickly become dissatisfied and think, I'm not doing that. And then I started to condemn and judge myself for that. And then one day I got this understanding, you know what? You're not a quitter. You're a self-learner. You're someone that likes to learn things by yourself. You don't like to be in the classroom. You don't like to be taught. And that's really the epitome of my whole journey is I taught this to myself because that's the way I like to learn. And that's the best way. And that's why when I work with people, I really want them to follow their guidance system and what they're drawn to, because it isn't the practice that's actually bringing the connection to us. It's our belief in it that we are doing the right thing that's going to be connective. And therefore that makes the connection. And really, once those energy centers are open and receiving, once you drop the judgment and the condemnation about yourself, all of the wisdom and knowledge that I was reading about, I can ask any question that I want to and get the answer. I can automatic write anything that I'm interested in knowing the answer. So it comes right through the field. It's not something that you need to get from a teacher or another book, but they are a stimulant. They are something that makes you believe that it's possible. So in that respect, it's useful. It's a tool. We use lots of different tools. Some people use drugs, alcohol, whatever it is that they use as a tool. The main focus is make sure you love it, because if you condemn and judge it, it's going to become a controller of you. And it might be surprising to many that when we move with people that are drug addicted or have alcoholism problems, we want them to know that they have nothing to be ashamed of, that they used a tool to try to feel better. That's what they did. And in their condemning and judging of themselves and the use of that tool, they therefore expanded that energy to the point where they couldn't live without it. That's basically what happens in drug addiction and alcohol addiction. So, it's just to understand that we're all using tools. That might be tarot cards, it might be a pendulum, it might be books, it might be other teachers, but they are tools for a re-remembering of something that we already have.
So tell us about how did the channeling begin? Did you know what a channel was, and where did it
Yeah.
start? How did that evolve?
Yeah, well, in my early 40s, I attracted to myself a relationship with a channeler, and she ended up becoming a very good friend of mine, and so I had that experience. And at that time, in my early 40s, I wouldn't think that I was thinking that much about doing it myself, but I was fascinated by it, loved it, enjoyed it, had shared it with some of my family members, and I've been fortunate in that respect that my husband and my kids are open to these types of things. And so I don't think that that necessarily precipitated the channeling. However, as the Kundalini energy continued to expand, and as I said, it would come and go in phases. There would be times where I'd be very drawn to sit time, and I would allow that to happen. And there would be lots of kriyas, which are involuntary body movements that energy uses to make its way through your body. And so I would permit time for that. And the more that I did that, the more infused by that energy I became, and the more information that seemed to start infusing me. And I would say probably by my mid 40s to early 50s, I had a knowing. I felt, and I didn't share it with anyone because I thought, well, what if it, there's always that doubt, what if it doesn't happen? Then I'm going to look like a fool. But I had a downloaded feeling that, you're going to do this, that you're going to end up being a channeler. And I would be like, I don't think that's going to happen. The human part of me would kind of reject it. And that is a thing that I've had throughout my life with silly things. Like I would use one example of being a tennis player. When my kids were young, I had this undying desire to teach them to play tennis. And no one in my family played tennis. I never did, was never exposed to it, had no love of it. And my boys both became very good tennis players because I saw to it that they got the lessons and the instruction. And all the years that I was taking them, I just thought, wow, that looks so fun. That looks like that would be something I would have loved to have been exposed to. And then lo and behold, when my husband retired, we ended up buying a place in Naples, Florida, where tennis became a huge part of our lives. And we both became very good tennis players in our early 40s, and did that for over 20 years, and quickly rose to a pretty high level for our age. So, then one looks back on that and thinks, the only way I can explain it is, to some degree, I think our life there is a path, or something that's already created in what's going to unfold. And I can't help but think that somehow that part of my future was shared with me in some way, because there was no reason that I would be drawn to that activity. And I had this with a number of things. I actually, with the husband that I'm married to, I've been with him since I was 13. We met, we got married in our early
Wow.
20s. And yeah, almost over 50 years together as a couple, and married 47 now. And I remember the first day that he walked into the classroom, and I had this knowing, and I even shared it with him. Here's this little boy sitting in class, and I said, "You don't know it yet, but you and I are going to be married someday." And he remembers that. And in fact, we dated all through grade school. It's like fifth grade, and then sixth grade, something like that, and through junior high and high school. And so there've been periods of time through my life that, for me, there was like a peek into the future. And I felt like this didn't feel any different than that. There was a peek into the future that this might be coming. And in fact, it did. That's what happened. I would say that for me, I got drawn to some things. I was interested in doing a little bit of breath work by myself, not the real rapid, difficult, but the more slow breathing. Whenever I would see something or hear something, I think, oh, I want to give that a try. That sounds kind of interesting. So I started to do a little bit of that, but it wasn't really the breath work that brought it on. It was just allowing the time, I think, for the connection to happen. And so I sat down to do a little bit of breath work, and very quickly noticed that I went into a lot of mudras. It'd be very intricate hand designs on both sides of the body. And they were doing them to myself, but I wasn't doing them. My arms were moving automatically without me actually having anything to do with it. And then I actually set up a camera in my meditation room, or if you want to call it that. And I thought, I'm going to show these to my husband. And he goes, that just looks strange. I don't even know if I want to see it. It's very odd.
So your
And
hands were literally like moving around, but you weren't deliberately moving them
I
right.
wasn't doing it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
they just go, and they do this occasionally, even when I'm working with a client, or on myself. Sometimes I'm called to sit, and I'll actually move energy doing it to myself and have no idea why I'm doing it. So those types of things started to happen. And then as that recording was going, then there became just some real oddities. Like my side of my mouth it would feel like someone had their finger in it, was just pulling it to the side, and then the other side. Then there would be these yawns that I can only describe like times 1,000, where I would go into the yawning position. I'd be there for minutes and then expel something that felt like a yawn, but it was way longer than what a yawn would be. And I noticed that, and this still happens to this day, lots of eye leaking, not crying, just steady streams of water pouring out of the corners of my eyes when I was in sit time. And so there were a lot of, and then there would be at times what I can only describe as a silent scream. My mouth would be wide open, no noise coming out, but it would feel like. So the only thing I can surmise is there was some type of a releasing of resistance or energy that was going on prior to them entering. And these were some of the things leading up to it. That's how I would describe it. That went on for a few weeks. And then I would say about 2 or 3 weeks into that, we had a trip planned, and I met one of my sons in Fort Lauderdale, and I was kind of telling him because they were open to whatever I was experimenting with. And as soon as I started talking about it, I could feel my whole body start moving, and I wasn't doing it. It was again something and he goes, "I can see that going on right now." He goes, "Well, something's in there. Why don't you come out and talk?" And that's the first time that I felt myself kind of slip into the background and something else began speaking. And during that time, it was not comfortable. I would say it was really a strain in this area and on my voice box. Lots of sweating, so much sweating and heat that it just went right through all the clothes that I brought for the weekend on the trip. And I can remember, coming in and out of it thinking, This is not comfortable at all." I don't really like the way that this feels. And of course, in the beginning, my family, my husband is in particular, everybody's asking about politics and underground governments and, things that I don't have any interest in at all. And I'm finding that to be a difficult topic. And, what I've learned throughout this process is they really are here with a purpose. And that purpose is one that is something that can be used, something that can be embodied in the life that people are in. So there are certain topics that they're really not interested in going into. They really want people to become the creators and the transmuters of negativity themselves rather than having to wait until they align to something that the divine has lifted in order to flow through them. So the teachings are really beneficial to people that get them in their present life, in what they're living. They're not too concerned on whether it's from a past life or lineage, because if you have evidence of something in your life that you're not satisfied with, then that's evidence that you're holding emotion, and it doesn't really care. They don't really care where it came from. They just move to assist you in releasing that energy. And in the release of that energy, you just get connected to flow, and things just automatically come to you. There's no as people might think, no level of perfection or practice or judgment or any preconceived notion that you've done anything wrong. There just isn't any of that. That's a bunch of dogma that's been placed on people. So I think that that's really the driving message. And once the weekend was over and we got home, of course, it was a little chaotic because I had not learned that. And really, the universe is thought provoked. Is how this event really ended up happening to me, because I was always interested in knowing who am I? Why am I here? Am I going to still be expressing as Robin when I leave this body, or is that kaput? Is that the end of me? And so these are the things that I was always pondering. And when you're a question asker, the universe eventually answers that question. And so it's no different for me when I have a thought about something, or I have a client that asks something, or something makes me question something. If one of my kids are in an argument with their spouse, and I'll think, what's really going on there? Then pretty soon I get a really detailed understanding of the emotional value that's being exchanged, that's behind. It's never about a circumstance, a person, a situation. Everything is you. Everything is about what are you holding within you that's producing these mirrors that are coming back to you as evidence of how you're creating in your experience. And so the first thing that needs to happen is you have to recognize that if you're blaming, or if you're pointing a finger, or if you think someone has caused you for any reason to feel in a certain way, you're creating unconsciously in your experience, and you're going to suffer because of it. And until you let go of that energy, the universe is going to continue to show you what you're producing that's preventing it from flowing to you what it has produced. So once you get that understanding that there is no right and wrong, there is no good and bad, people don't want to give that up right away, because they think, well, they did steal from me, they did insult me, they did pull out in front of me or throw the garbage out the window, but none of that matters, because the reason that's happening is because you hold an emotional basis that matches what's coming into your experience, and that's all that matters. So once you really get that teaching and understanding, and sometimes it takes a while to get people to that point, everything in their experience changes and they become the masters that they were meant to be, and really get the nice experiences that were created by everything that they felt. There's never been anything that you have done that's not forgivable or that's judgeable. Everything has been accumulated in your behalf, and you can get access to that the minute you start to love yourself and the free will choice that you have to choose how you feel in your experience.
That's a pretty bitter pill to swallow, isn't it? For some, I think for for any of us, is the thing that whatever is happening in our life is something that we've actually somehow
Yeah.
drawn
Well,
into it.
let's talk about that for a minute because the pill that you can't swallow is at a level of consciousness that prevents you from swallowing it. So, just by getting the information that we've given here right now, we've expanded consciousness. There are some people that have never heard this before, have no idea that they have any control over their life or their experience with the people that they're bringing into it. So, when you get that understanding and you start to expand in consciousness, what is an expansion of consciousness? It's when you leave the third dimension of consciousness with your consciousness and move to a level where new perceptions are available. So, are you really doing it through effort? Are you really doing it through being a better human? Or are you doing it through the accumulation of wisdom and knowledge and understanding that are expanding your consciousness to a level of which new choices are available? We think it's that choice. We think that's what's happening. So, even to say that everybody's doing the work, quote unquote, who's doing the work? Nobody. The consciousness of the plane is rising regardless of what anyone is doing. The Earth is having solar flashes. It's speeding up. She is the house that we are all living on or in. And then as that vibration rises, it stimulates our energy centers. And guess what? Our consciousness starts to rise. So when people say, how is our government going to be different? How are we going to get a new world or a different world? We're going to leave. Our consciousness is going to rise to a level of which that world is a part of and already formed in. And until people start to perceive that and understand that that actually exists, they can't see that reality. We have the ability to pick and choose how we want to live and feel in the experience that we're in, regardless of what's going on in the masses. So, by your focus, by your intent, and by your knowingness of how you create in your experience, you can actually create a cocoon around you where the outside influence will have no power over you. That you would actually be experiencing in your private universe, nothing like those that are experiencing and suffering because you're not part of that paradigm anymore. So, a rise in consciousness, what does it give you? It gives you less negativity. It gives you a level of which your source is a part of to choose and love, to choose in alignment, to choose. There's no anger there to choose from. There's no jealousy. There's no rage. The old emotions that you used to have access don't exist at the higher levels of consciousness.
So I've noticed that your speech is very, very free flowing. You're like someone who has been speaking about something for a very long time. So is what's coming through for you is
Well,
some of this flowing through, or is it's what's coming out of
so
your head?
what
How does your experience?
when you have fully activated Kundalini, one of the benefits of that energy is it connects you to the divinity part of you, which then gives you the same flow that you have when you're channeling for other entities. So, what you're experiencing right now is Robin in full connection with the divinity part of Robin, which provides that natural flow that I get when I also channel other entities. So, this is available to everyone. It's what some of your masters, Tony Robbins, Joe Dispenza, in the way that they communicate, the high magnetism that they have that actually creates a very quick following and advancement very fast of their careers comes from that magnetism that is created by the release of that Kundalini energy. So that is enhancing my ability to communicate. Mhm.
So from that initial weekend where there was the you're obviously channeling something that was going on, you kind of stepped backwards a little bit. So then how did things evolve from there?
Yeah, so, I went home and like I said, it was a little bit bumpy for a while because I thought, these people are talking day and night, and our lives are now changed, and how am I gonna do my laundry, cook a meal, and have a moment with my husband? And he said, "I like to read my paper and not get up at, 3 o'clock in the morning when somebody wants to talk." But, in the beginning, when you can't quit thinking about it, that's what's provoking them to come forward. You have to understand that these beings are not, like you and I that are looking at each other or, sitting next to each other. They're perceiving your energetic field. So when you think about them, they're not thinking it's 3 o'clock in the morning. They're not thinking your husband's reading his paper. They're thinking, I'm getting a signal from you and I'm going to answer it. You're ringing my phone. And so I'm picking up. So once I really started to understand how the dialing was taking place and that I was actually thinking about them all the time because it was new, of course, and it was kind of shocking. Then my experience really started to smooth out because I would just decide today's my day. I'm not thinking about you today. I'm not, going there. And then, of course, they wouldn't come forward. It's just when I think about them or I pose a question, or if I would even wonder, I wonder what these people would think of what I'm doing. They would say, "Well, let's find out." It would be like an invitation. It's like an immediately opening up a connection when you have that thought.
And so, what's it like for you now? Like, how when you what's the channeling experience is like? Are you kind of like here and there, or do you? I know some people kind of really step to the side and they don't know what's going on, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's a very natural thing. It doesn't feel unnatural to me at all. I don't feel as though I remember any of the exchanges when I'm done with them. Much of the information, if not all, is removed very quickly from my cognitive recall. So I don't have a lot of recall after I get done, which I'm kind of happy about. And I don't really have any need to listen to it back anymore. In the beginning, I would say probably within the first year, there were a lot of just work with the family, and that's what they said they were going to do, just really getting them acclimated to what I'm gonna be doing, what they're doing, trying to get, their relationships all running as smoothly as possible and get the teachings through to them, and that's exactly what happened. The first year and a half to 2 years was spent, primarily with family, and people that were close to me, and then, there were a lot of, private sessions that I did just figuring out how it was gonna work, whether it was something I wanted to do, how effective it was, very quickly, that became understandable that it was effective and that it was something I wanted to use. Then I went of course, Alex's show just absolutely blew me up. I think I booked out 80 or 100 sessions after that, and I didn't have my calendar protected, and I was really overwhelmed, honestly, and took on way too much. And then I learned that I had to block my calendar and space out the interviews that I went on and the amount of sessions that I want to do because I am 65 years old. I've got grandkids and things that I want to spend time with that I want to tend to. So I've gotten very much better at managing my time. And I know a lot of channelers that become busy stop doing private sessions. I haven't done that yet. I feel like there's a certain amount of service that I want to do, that I'm called to do, that I'm going to continue that for a while. I do some group things where I assist groups of people in lifting off entrapments or emotional baggage that's in their energy centers, and then to assist them in lifting their Kundalini energy. So I do activations, 20 people at a time, about every other month or so. I do that, and I do just one a day on Fridays. I was doing a lot more of those, and most people want to book the hour and a half, and they usually take me 2 hours. They don't take just an hour and a half because there's really a great benefit in those sessions. But I find that in my stage of life and the amount of time that I have and the energy that it takes, I only do one of those a day on Fridays now, and those book out in a couple of months, at least 2-3 months in advance. So that's primarily where I'm at now. It's really interesting how this really linked together with a lot of the things that I, as Robin, had studied and learned about Kundalini energy. And recently, this is kind of a funny story. I had an interview with a person who had not the best English. It was really difficult to understand the translation, and I felt like it was a kind of a shit interview. Really, it just didn't go that well, and I was kind of disappointed in it. I thought, "What's going on here?" I didn't have the flow like I have today, and I recognized that there's something in me that is signaling them in cognition, even though I'm not really part of the exchange. The ability for me to perceive the question that's being asked is what makes that transfer. And when I wasn't able to get that perception, when the English was so broken, I kept feeling myself as Robin kind of trying to listen for whatever is listening. And it just didn't go well. And then what came from that, now I know why that happened, was any way that you want to expand your consciousness, having some cognitive understanding helps you send a signal in connectivity to what it is you're interested in. And so, if I wanted to channel the Palladians, if I want to channel extraterrestrials, and it was something that I, as Robin, was never that interested in, I need to expend a little bit of energy in that direction in order to have a signal that can be picked up on for those beings to channel through you. So that could have happened for some people in a past life and they have no awareness of it. Or it could be something that you're very interested in this life. Maybe you had a lot of reading or interest in alien activity and then drew that experience to yourself. But I think it's important that we all understand that we are the creators of our experience, and that includes the channeling experience and what you want to channel, what level of intelligence you want to channel. Some of the greatest channelers, like Sylvia Brown, who were pretty well renowned for helping the police in a lot of different cases, and she was able to lay her hand on material and actually detect, what was in there. One of the things that she was advised to do immediately in her first connecting to spirit was to take a couple of years off and study absolutely everything that she could, every religion, every practice that she had in her repertoire would only make her a more attractive channel to other levels of consciousness. So I feel like that interview was just a reminder to me because I'd kind of put the study books down. After I got this connection, I thought, oh, this is pretty good. No need to go any further. But I think sometimes there's always a need to go further, and there's no end to that further. The level of consciousness that one can reach, even for the group that I'm channeling, is endless. There's no level. And I, of course, thought when I got a grandchild that I had discovered a new level of love, which was new for me. But that doesn't mean that there are not yet higher and higher and higher levels of love. There are. So the only way that one can reach those is to continue in their search. And I think that's something that is probably never going to end because it's eternal.
So Athena and Truth, how did that come about? Did they introduce themselves as that, or did you ask the question one day, or how did that happen?
Yeah, well, when it first started out, everybody wanted names, just like you. I could say to you, "Who are you?" And you would give me a name, but really, is that really who you are? I mean, it's just something somebody pasted to you as a description of your face, basically. When this first started out, this is way what everybody wanted names for this one, names for that one. And I think there were 7 to begin with, and there's 12 or something like that. Now I don't ask for names anymore because it doesn't really matter. And in the divinity aspect of yourself, there is a procedure called merging, or it's more of a telepathic communication. So everybody can be communicating at one time and using one speaker in order to transfer that information. And in this case, the Speaker of the House was Athena because she was the first one that entered. She was the first one that I felt draw the breath, asked me what it felt like when I said I didn't have any confidence. That head went back and that breath came in, and there was a voice in my head that said, "How do you like the feeling of confidence?" And it was certainly no feeling I'd ever had before. So I knew that it wasn't me. And it actually sat me up, and it wasn't me sitting up. So it's really odd when something operates your body like that. It was kind of funny because there is another entity that I channel that goes under the name of Jeremiah, who some people either love him or hate him. He's very direct and pungent, and he can get loud, and he meets the energy where it is. If somebody's really stuck in something, you're going to feel that energy come forward. We just didn't think he'd really be the best speaker of the house. So in any event, he's close at hand. I would say he's probably the second most prominent speaker, but generally only comes through if there's some type of really trapped energy or something somebody isn't wanting to move from. He kind of assists in a little bit of a energetic push in that direction. But the Athena and Truth name that was given to me, and Athena is a representation of a woman in her power. So when everything that exists are like streams of consciousness, and streams of consciousness can contain many more than one consciousness. It could be multiple that fall into that stream of consciousness. So in that call for more confidence, I actually embodied the consciousness of the goddess of Athena. That's what it was. So does it mean I am the goddess Athena? It means that that feeling or that presence or that connectivity is what I actually connected to. And so there again, it's about matching, and really everybody that you're interacting with in your life, you're some type of a connective match too. So it's really no different than that. That you're entering into streams of consciousness of which pools of souls are a part of that resonate with the vibrance or the vibrational level that you're at is what draws onto you the people that you are in exchange with. And it's no different non-physical. It's the same. Yeah, no different at all. I think I veered off a little bit from the question, but in any event, that name was brought up because in the description of my group of what love is truth. Everybody wants the truth. Nobody wants to be lied to. Nobody wants to be sold something that they know inside themselves doesn't feel like a resonance. So what better description for love than truth? Athena, being the Speaker of the House, said, "I'll be Athena in truth." So that's how that name was born. And the other entities soon dropped their names. Many of them had previous lifetimes. Some have not. Some have never been in physical form, and some have.
Wow. So is there anybody that's like tapping you on the shoulder at the moment that
Well,
wants to
it'll
say
always be
something?
Athena as the speaker of the house. So, if you want me to allow that to happen, that can happen in an instant, and then you can ask any questions that you would be wanting to ask.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Sure. Yeah, it doesn't take long. Yeah, Robin is what's called a on task, yeah, or conscious channeler, but not conscious really of what's being exchanged. She is conscious of us being ever present. It is what she invited to herself in the beginning. There are some channels who need to do a prep time. They need to do some breath work. They want to surround themselves in some type of protection. And Robin, in fact, asked not to do that. She would like to be immediately accessible without any effort on her part or need to protect herself. If any other entity were to approach, and there are some that like to approach, yeah, that when a human has activated Kundalini, they become a signal sender to other entities that want to channel through them because they are spreadable. They are someone that moves information very quickly because of the attractive quality of magnetism that goes with that energy. So, but we are the ones that determine, per Robin's request, whether someone would be in fact added to that list or not. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm fascinated by Kundalini energy and Kundalini rising. I don't believe that it's something that I've experienced.
Okay.
Um, but now that we're talking about it, I'm interested in cultivating that. And is it just a matter of like watching what I'm interested in
Yeah.
to have
Yeah.
to move forward with that?
Mhm. When we are in an exchange with a human, we are inviting the divinity part of you to pick up that energy or to transmit that to your energy centers for stimulation in actually activating that energy. It's one of the reasons Robin's on the plane. She doesn't always know that. Yeah. So as she is walking around, as she's meeting with people, she is an activator or a stimulator of that energy. So don't be surprised if you are not more and more drawn into that practice or that way of being. Yeah. Kundalini energy is a universal soul aspect energy that sits at the spine of every human. So what we have here is a universal consciousness of creation, a female divine energy, if you will, that sits at the base of the spine, that is responsible for creation, sits at the spine of every human. Yeah. When a human enters the plane, primarily they come in the three lower energy centers because you are bringing with you a very highly charged energetic package. It kind of needs to be condensed down or folded. It is one of the reasons that humans will say, well, why do we have to come in here forgetting everything or not knowing everything? Because everything won't fit. We would tell you if we were to bring in the full vibration of that which you are as a fully connected a soul, divinity aspect of yourself, the vibration would be too high for the human in its third density form to handle. So that energy is then condensed down. It is put at the base of the spine. And as the human starts to unfold spiritually, as they start to recognize that they are the creators of their own experience, as they start to gather wisdom and knowledge, they very gradually start to expand those energy centers, and more of that divine energy can start to escape or travel up the spine. And so initially, you are containing that energy. You are getting just enough in the three lower energy centers. So at the root, the sacrum, and the stomach area. In this area, this is when the ego is very active, and humans don't like themselves in their ego. They want to get rid of it, but really you need it. When you are in the three lower energy centers, there's lack, there's judgment, there's not enoughness, there's all these kinds of things that are going on. There's some good stuff coming in, but you are basically creating by competing, by not enoughness. It's what you believe, and it's all the energy that you have available to you. So you do need to do these things. Yeah. So as you have a meeting with someone like us, and people are watching it, they start to think in reading what it is by feeling what it is that we are transmitting to them. They start to feel whether this is in fact accepted by their guidance system. If they feel it's true, and if they do feel it's true, they allow it in. If they don't feel it's true, doesn't come in. Yeah. So it would be by your permission, by alignment in the way that this made you feel, that you were receiving something that in fact felt true to you, that you would, as a human, open your field, and then your divinity part would open then its field to us. And we would be able to run that divine Kundalini energy speed through your energy centers, accelerating your process. Yeah. But it is all done by your approval, by your acceptance. Nothing is ever placed upon a human without their agreement to it. Yeah. So as you get this understanding that I can create my experience, I do have this energy that can accelerate my manifestation time, can accelerate my satisfaction in my life, can accelerate my ability to create things that I am really wanting to experience. So then I get this understanding, I get excited about it, and then the teachers come. That's why we're here. Yeah. Whether you know it or not, you called us in long before we are here. Yeah. So then you start to come into meeting with people that will actually drop the breadcrumbs or lead you in a direction towards your awakening or understanding of how you create in your experience. Then you move up into what we call fourth dimension. You start to get access to the heart center. That would be where the energy would start to first come into you. You start to get a little excited. You want to tell everybody about what you learned and tell them how much better their life could be if they would learn what you do. But you still have some judgment. You still have some condemnation. So you're fishtailing a little bit up and down, going back and forth between third density and fourth density, not quite fully feeling satisfied in your experience because you're still encountering some negativity or opposition from others in the way that you feel. But then this is a natural process. And if you would not dislike yourself in it, you would soon pass through that stage. And then you would enter into what we call fifth density. So you're expanding up further into the upper energy centers of where you start to connect to your source. More energy is coming up that is likened to your source and making it connective to it. So that vibration of you starts to speed up and you get entrance into the fifth dimension of reality where different emotions are available, where you start to believe and perceive that I don't need to take anyone else's stuff. I don't need to compete with anyone else. I don't need to judge and condemn the way that I am creating my experience. And I start to surrender a little bit to the way that I am feeling and in this connective state of allowing myself to have free will in the way that I feel in choosing the feelings that I have in my experience makes me a match to divine love of which flow comes from. So it's never been about the way that I've done things or me being right or wrong or good or bad. It's always been about how have I perceived myself in the way that I have created, because the divine part of you has perceived you in love unconditionally. And so once you get this discovery that, I can just love myself in every stinking thing that I do, I can just surrender to the feelings that I am picking and choosing in the way that I feel, and my consciousness will rise where different behavior is, and I will become the human that I want to, but it's never going to be by me efforting. It's never going to be by me changing anything about myself. It's going to be by me surrendering to that I do have a divinity part of me that will assist me in my rise of consciousness once I surrender to it, you see.
Okay, so I have a question about a physical ailment, and this is for me, but I think it's for everybody.
Mhm.
So I have as a sciatic pain, right? So it runs from the buttocks right down the backs of both the legs. And for those of who had sciatic, you'll know what I'm talking about. And I've had a scan, and there's in my vertebra, there's a disc bulge that's pressing on a nerve, and they think that's what the problem is. And
Mhm.
I and so as long as I sit down, I'm okay. If I stand up
Mhm.
or try to walk, it's
Mhm.
excruciating. So life's not fun when I try to do that. And I'm wondering to myself, is this me subconsciously trying to slow myself down, or I would prefer not to have to deal with this and put it that way. And I'm just
Everything that
wondering,
you
what is the
experience
lesson here?
Well, everything that a human is experiencing is coming from some kind of an emotional content that is built up long
Mm.
enough that a physical symptom or a condition then appears. Yeah. So it is to understand that uh, uh, any type of affliction that a human has is an emotion that's gotten louder. Let's use that term. Yeah. So let's go back to before you ever had this problem or this affliction. Yeah. And then to the remembrance of when it first onset or you first started to get it. What did you feel emotionally as you got this symptom?
The freedom being taken away from me. That was probably the thing that stands out the most. Like, I didn't have the freedom to be able to move how I wanted, exercise how I wanted, go for a walk when I wanted.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you felt like a loss of control. Something had power over you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something you had no control of. Yeah. So let us ask you, if we were to remove the sciatica condition from your experience and we were to go back into your early childhood as you lived at home with the parents that you lived in, did you ever feel any of those ways?
Yeah, I think that's probably why I wanted to move out of home as quickly as I could, so I
Yeah.
could
Because you
I could call
felt
the shots. Yeah.
you as though you did not have full control over your experience or ability to advance or do what it was that you were preferring to do. Yeah. Uh,
Right.
so, so what happens is, so you sent that signal out. Yeah. So that goes out to the universe. I'm feeling controlled. I'm feeling as though I'm not free. I'm feeling as though I'm not in my power or have the ability to make decisions for myself in the direction that I want to. So now understand that you've sent that signal to the universe and it says, got that. I got it. Yeah. And then it cultivated a circumstance or situation for you that would have flowed a life to you that in fact would not have existed, that you would have felt in your power, you would have felt free, you would have felt exactly the way that you would have wanted to feel. Yeah. But as you held that resonance and as you went out into your experience, we can only imagine that you found yourself with other reflections that made you feel that way through relationships, through jobs. through other experiences. Would that be accurate?
Yes.
Yes, and that would be accurate because that's how you create your experience, yeah? So you were holding on to that thing that you didn't like, yeah? Thinking that I don't like it and it's showing up in my experience and I'm going to let myself know that I don't like it by thinking about I don't like it, yeah? And so I expand the energy. I continue to expand the energy. So when the universe sends you a signal in one area of your life and you don't notice it, then it moves it to another area and says, well, let's try you here. Let's try you having no control over your relationship or the way that you feel in it. Let's try maybe your work area, go down into the gut. Let's move that energy around a little bit and see if we can get him to release so that I could send him the experience that I have created by the feeling that he sent me that he didn't like. But you didn't do that. You held on to it. And you continue to suffer that same feeling over and over in many different areas of your life. And you continue to layer and expand that energy. When you continue to layer and expand that energy, what happens is every energy center starts to slow. As they slow down, the life force energy is what gives you your passion. It's what gives you your wellness. Your vibrancy is all coming through those energy centers. And so, as that slows down, the universe knows that you're at threat now, that you are not getting enough of its divinity energy for it to give you the life that it wants to. So then it says, let's up the ante. Let's give him something that he can't ignore, that's so miserable, that he has attention on it in the way that it makes him feel, because that feeling would expand. Maybe he will recognize, or maybe he might come in front of someone that will help him recognize. Maybe that's us. Yeah. That I've been holding on to this energy so long that I now have a physical symptom. And now that I've gone to the doctor and he found something, he found a bulging disc that's responsible for my problem. I'm not responsible. My bulge in my disc is responsible. Well, guess what? If you took 100 MRIs and you read them by a medical doctor, we would say in people's 60s or in that area that probably maybe 75% would have bulging discs. And of that 75%, there would be many who do not have any symptoms at all. So if a bulging disc was your problem, then why wouldn't everybody have that problem? Why would it be intermittent? We'll tell you why. Because it matches the emotional value. You got to have a bulging disc and some emotion to go with it to get the reaction you're getting.
Okay. All right. I got that. So now I'm kind of like, okay, what do I do about it? What can I do
Yeah.
about it?
So what you do, yeah? So you have some believability going. You have some energy going in the direction of belief. I got a medical doctor with a degree that's giving me this information. I'm believing in it. I can't get away from that. We don't ever want you arguing with the human and what it believes. We want you to get congruent with whatever it is that you choose. And through congruency, through alignment, you open yourself inadvertently to flow. So when we have humans that come to us and they are taking some kind of a cancer treatment, they're not happy about it. They think it's poison, but they're afraid. They're afraid if they stop it, they're going to die because of it. And with that belief or perception, they very well might. That might be what happens. So what we tell them to do is to love the treatment. We tell them to take the last drops of the bag, rub it all over their body, and be grateful for it, and be ready and waiting for the good that it's going to do for you, because it does you no good to choose something and then go against yourself in the choice that you've made. That creates resistance in the field. Yeah. So we would tell you that you have a lot of belief going in the direction that that bulge is the problem that's causing you the problem. And so we say, then go ahead. Yeah. But do it consciously, do it knowingly, do it that I have chosen to believe in this thing. I have given my power away to this thing. This kind of consciousness and awakeness, instead of unconsciously suffering in pain, in misery, in thinking that you have no control over something, know that you did have control. Know that you did make that choice. Yeah. This is how you invite the divine consciousness. Your divinity aspect of you is aware. It's awake. It knows the truth. It's just like when people listen to some of our recordings and they say there was a resonance there. I felt something. I just felt like it matched me or it was truth. And we tell you that resonance is your divinity part of yourself. That's what you're looking to feel. You're looking for resonance. Yeah. And if you feel not resonance with anything that we're saying, then don't adopt it. Go with resonance. And we don't care if the resonance is right or wrong. There is no right and wrong. You're looking for personal resonance. That's what you're looking for. If your personal resonance is putting all of your belief that the bulge is the problem, then find yourself a doctor to remove the bulge and see if it removes your problem. Because that, and as long as you put all of your congruency into that, you'll get the right doctor, you'll get the result, and you'll get relief. But if you go into it thinking, I wish I didn't have to do this. I don't really trust this guy. I know other people that have had back operations and they haven't gone well. Now you're cultivating another experience, aren't you? Now a doctor that's going to come to you might botch it. You might have a little problem. You might fall into a stream of consciousness of which that is a part of. So, but it's your creation. Everything is. Everything is your creation in the way that you want to feel in it. But what's problem with the human is they aren't paying attention. They are unconscious. If you're not feeling good, if you're not feeling aligned and in congruency with the choice that you make, then you are not in alignment to your source. If you are making the right choice, you're going to feel resonance. You're going to feel this is right for me. This is good for me. But we cannot make it clear enough to you. If you still believe that the bulge is the problem, then go with it, but get congruent with it. Don't doubt it. Don't worry about it. Make sure that you align to the choice that you make, because creation follows you. It follows what you choose to believe, you see.
Mm.
That's what reality is.
So just so I understand this, so I have this urge, almost irresistible, to take breaks occasionally, and I like twist my spine one way and then twist it the other. And my
Mhm,
chiropractor has explicitly said, don't stretch like that.
mhm.
And but it feels really good when I do it. So I think what you're saying is there, if you really feel that something is in alignment with, then that's what you should do rather than kind of
Absolutely.
resist.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Because sciatica is a nerve impingement. They can call it what they want to. Yeah. But something is impinging upon your nerve. So if you find that you are resonating with different types of movements, then by all means. But again, if you choose the twisting and you doubt the validity of your choice, you could get the harm that he has described to you. We
Mm,
want you to understand that people who are sitting in a beauty salon and the radio is playing, if you have an evening glass of wine every night, you will be susceptible to cancer in a number of years. Yeah. And so they hear this and they love their wine. And one night they sit down to have it, but they remember the recording. They are adding unto their universe the fears of those that are creating in fear, you see. And so it is to be aware of your emotional basis. What is it that you really are resonating with and really believing? Because if you really believe, if you've really perceived that you could hurt yourself doing what it is that you are doing because of what he has told you, then you are somewhat susceptible to what he has told you, you see. Yeah. So by becoming awakened, this is what you do. So maybe I go to twist, and maybe the thought comes that he said, don't twist. Now I take my divinity aspect of myself. I see you're afraid to twist. Yeah. I see you are worried about the choice you are making. Yeah. I have received you in that. I want to make sure you get what you want. Yeah. So now I have brought awakeness or the high vibration of awareness to my energy field where fear exists. And I'm rattling it, aren't I? That vibration cannot stand against the high vibration of love of which your divinity part is accessing. Yeah. So as you are aware and awake, people ask, how do I connect? When you are in knowingness, when you are awake and aware, when you're conscious, when you are suffering, when you are not blaming something outside of yourself, then you are awake. If you think someone else has wronged you, if you think someone else has hurt you and caused you a feeling, you are asleep, you see. That's the difference.
that's very, very useful. Um, Robin, we can have you back if that's easy for you.
Yeah, really easy for me. Yeah. Get out of here.
That's really impressive. All right, that was terrific. Um, so the last 10 minutes or 15 minutes of conversation, that's kind of a blank, or it's fading very quickly for you right now.
Fades very quickly. Yeah, very
Yeah.
quickly.
You know, what makes sense to me is that it's something that occurs. I think of our brain as like a reducing mechanism, right? So it really takes what is in the field and then in our brain brings it in. And so channeling occurs in the field, and then to actually then layer those memories into the brain would take some kind of really highly conscious effort, and it's like too much to put in there. So we just kind of like it stays in the field,
Yeah,
and that's
and,
great.
what's interesting is if someone would ask me a lot of run-on questions, that's problematic because, the only way the best way I can describe the information coming and people use a block, of thought or, it almost feels like it just gets imprinted, it just gets placed. If someone were to ask like a many-part question, they'll say, "Whoa," they want to bring it in blocks. So there's something going on in the use of the tool of me, in my consciousness, where they can't put too much in holding. I can't back it up too long, and that becomes a problem. And then they have to answer, get that off the table, and then move on from there. And that's just how it works for me. I don't know if that's a problem for other people or not. But oftentimes when I'm doing YouTubes or channeling in our group Q&A where people come on live, that's what my sister will let them know. Let's keep it to one part questions. You can ask several questions, but if they run on too much with the story, because it really isn't about the story anyway. To be honest, it's about the feelings that are involved that are really the core issue, or what it is that needs to be uprooted. I'm still learning. This is a never-ending process of learning. When I first started doing it, took a great deal of trust to be able to sit in front of people and not know what you're going to talk about, or to come on a show like this and wonder how it's going to go. And of course, there was some angst and nervousness, but there just isn't any of that anymore. There's just a totally trust and stepping aside. And I find the more that I do that, the better the flow is, and the better the exchanges are becoming because of it. And it is a process. It's something that anyone that goes into this type of work or field, let's use that, you got to go through that uncomfortable stage of accepting what's coming, and being willing to share it and put yourself out there. It feels like a lot of vulnerability. It doesn't feel like that so much to me anymore, and I found more and more better level of communication because of it. A lot more telepathic communication has happened. That's kind of more of a regular event. And I used to wonder, well, how's that going to feel if someone's thinking something about me that I don't really like the thought of? But what's odd is at the level that telepathy exists at, those old emotions don't exist. There's an understanding at a soul level of communication where there's no offense taken. There's no negativity experienced in knowing the truth. It's just accepted at that level of consciousness.
I think it would be quite liberating not having to like plan and finesse a response and just sort of allow what comes through and just deliver it and with some trust that it is exactly what's needed
Yeah.
from the
Well,
person.
and if you want to expand that property, and it is coming, everyone's going to get it eventually. You have to start using it. It's like a muscle that you have to use. You have to get the hit, and you have to say, "Hey, that's what I'm thinking," and let it come out. And so there is a little bit of exercise involved, if you will, to get that up and running.
Okay, Robin. So, how do people get in touch with you? What? Just
Yeah.
tell us what you've got going on, books, programs,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah, I have a book, I think it's in the background there, Choose Your Universe, and that was not written by me, was channeled by the group. I just take the dictation for it. I have a website called Athena Universe now, where I do a lot of answering of individual questions, if people email those in, because sessions are a little bit booked out. I also have uh, uh, different platforms on there that people can be a member of. Some of the best work that I do is coming through from the Shiva energy, which comes from the Kundalini energy reaching the crown or the top of the head. I'm told that eventually I'll be able to channel that verbally, but the belief maybe isn't quite there yet. So that's kind of a new thing that happened in the last year. I think it's some of the best work that I do, and that's available on the Athena Universe site. A lot of automatic transmissions come, and that energy of Shiva does all of those downloads that go on that site. And then there's verbal recordings that go out on there as well. I have the YouTube, which is Athena Universe. I'm sorry, Athena in Truth is my regular YouTube, and there's lots of free recordings that go on there. I put at least two of those a week out now with my sister Heidi that people enjoy listening to. They can do that for free. I have lots of different courses that are available on my website and private sessions on athenaandtruth.com. So really everything that I do is on that website and accessible if someone goes there.
Great, you've been busy. We'll put all that in the show notes. Is there anything you want to leave people with before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think there's just a lot of controversy right now in where the world is headed. And, I'm always kind of surprised when people talk about what a terrible place it is. And of course, some of the entities that I travel come forward and say, boy, you should have lived in some of the years that we've lived in. If you have to travel across in a covered wagon, and the rapes and brutal attacks and killing of children and women. that went on, and now we sit here today and think that we're in this terrible world, which I think primarily is precipitated by a lot of the negative news that's out there. There's a lot of wonderful things that are really going on, and life is good. I mean, and I'm not saying that there aren't people that are struggling in their experience. I'm sure there are, and there always have been, and always will be. But my group in particular doesn't really prescribe to any type of a doom or gloom type of outcome. That you're all the creators of your experience, and you can protect yourself by focusing in an intent way on how you want to feel in it. That never ends. You have a huge role that you play in what unfolds in the world. You are connected not just in the life that you're in, but to all the lineage that you're part of. So when you start thinking in a positive direction and you start healing the wounds that are contained within you, not only do you get a better life, but those that have gone before you and will come after you will get a better life because of that too, because we are all connected. So I just want people to really remember that there's a beautiful world that's been created by everything that everybody has felt, and we have to perceive that so that we can experience that in form.
That's a great message. Robin, it's been my pleasure to talk to you on the channel today. Keep doing what you're doing. Thanks also to Athena and the rest of the collective. And maybe we'll talk to you again on the channel soon.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.